I'm Sarah Webb. Welcome to Quantum Healing with the Angels, the podcast. Welcome to Quantum Healing with the Angels. I'm Sarah Webb, and Travis and I are so excited to have another episode for you today. If you are listening or viewing from our podcast, don't forget to follow and rate our show so that you never miss out on an episode. If you enjoy our content, please invite listeners to follow and also to rate the show. It really helps us out. And if you're viewing this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe by mashing the button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Travis likes to laugh at me because I say mash the button, but that's what I say. That is the best way to get our content noticed by others, which in turn helps us to be able to keep bringing you new content and to bring it more often. So today, Travis and I are sharing a conversation we had with Candace Craw-Goldman. Candace is a powerful influence in the quantum healing world. She has made a major impact with her offering Beyond Quantum Healing, or BQH for short. Candace worked closely with the late great Dolores Cannon from 2008 to 2014, assisting her in her live trainings and workshops. So Candace really got to be there. She was able to travel with Dolores and to work closely with her as she taught her modality, which is called QHHT, or Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. Candace is also the founder of quantumhealers.com, which is the home of Dolores Cannon's original quantum healing support forum. So if you aren't familiar with Candace, you may wonder, how did she become Dolores' close friend and assistant? It is a great story, but because it's already out there, I didn't want to spend our time focusing on that. So what I've done is left a link to another interview where you can listen to the whole story. Candace also has a little bit of this story on her own website, so I will also leave a link to her About Me page in the show notes as well. During our time together, Candace talked with us about what it was like to be Dolores' assistant, her thoughts on channeling, her own modality, Beyond Quantum Healing, and her newest modality, Quantum Connect, which I just became a practitioner of. Candace explains what Quantum Connect is and the difference between Quantum Connect and Beyond Quantum Healing. We talked a little bit about her farm and her horses and what it was like to have a session with Dolores and what her session was about. We also talked about a Beyond Quantum Healing session that was done with William and Allison Brown. So just to give you some backstory, Allison Brown is a Beyond Quantum Healing practitioner, and William Brown is her husband. They discovered that Will is a channel by Allison practicing putting him into hypnosis. It's very similar to our story. So Candace and Will did a session that Allison was the practitioner for. And when you do a session together like that, it's called a tandem session. This particular session had quite an effect on a lot of people out there. It actually had a really strong effect on me and on Travis. So we talked about that and how it affected us, how it is affecting other people, and the feedback that Candace has gotten since doing that with Will and with Allison. That was a very powerful session. I would advise anyone who is interested in these kinds of things to watch that session because it's been called medicine actually for people. So check it out. I am going to make sure that that is in the show notes for you as well, the link to that session. So we hope that you enjoy this wonderful session with Candace. I can always feel her positive energy and her passion for what she does. I really hope that you notice and feel that too. I'm sure you will. And again, please like, comment, subscribe, or leave us a review. It helps us so much to be able to continue to bring you the coolest guests and what we hope is super interesting content. So, okay, here we go with Candace Craw-Goldman. Well, Candace, welcome to Quantum Healing with the Angels. So you're our first guest. So we're excited to have you.
Yep,
Yay!
you're our first one.
I think I have one of those.
Let's have a party then.
I think I have one of those things going where you feel like you know the person because you've seen them on video so many times, you know?
Oh, but
And
you and I have
don't-
chatted. You and I have chatted offline on text and stuff.
That's true.
But this is the first time I'm getting to talk with Travis, so this will be fun.
Yeah, I was saying that to him today.
You know, I have a
She's never
son-in-law
really-
named Travis.
Oh man,
I do.
Yes, I know a lot of Travis. There's a lot of people that has Travises in their family. It's a really common name. I'm actually glad my mom named me Travis, and not one of those crazy names.
I know. We had a crazy
I
name
know.
conversation just yesterday. A friend of mine. It was there's crazy ones out there. When I was assisting Dolores, channeling's been around for a long time. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But there was people looked at it with even more of a kind of a side eye back then. And Dolores was one of those people. She actually, which is strange because she would end up then being friends with some channelers, but in classrooms and in certain situations, she would claim to really not hold much stock in channeling. And for I think a good reason. I think a lot of people to this day, I'm not saying you're one of them, but a lot of people to this day say they're channels or even say things like they're clear channels. And I'm not so sure that's what they are. I mean, I think some are more than others. I think it's just wise to have some discernment and some critical thinking when, and not just take everything at face value. So Dolores really wasn't too fond of the whole concept at all. But what's really interesting to me to note is that since her passing, there's been a number of deepenings of my understanding of that and of her. And the first thing is, I think she was doing channeling and she just kind of didn't own up to it. And I think the thing that she channeled more than anything was her higher self. There were times when she was Dolores Cannon, the grandma, and the Arkansas kind of country woman. And then there was the time when she was like channeling her higher self. And it was usually when she had people in front of her, big crowds in front of her. And she knew how to work a room for sure.
Did she?
Oh God, did she ever. I remember standing at the back, probably even the last time I did, which was her very last class. And it was her biggest, and it was astonishing. There was more people in that room than we'd ever seen. I'd been working with her for a number of years, and we walked in because at those later years, one of my, well, let's say duties or jobs in assisting her was I literally walked right next to her, sometimes holding her arm, going from her a hotel room across where we had the classes when I was still assisting. There was the hotel, and then there was a bigger kind of conference center, but it wasn't, you couldn't get to it directly from the hotel. You actually had to leave the hotel and walk down the sidewalk, off the sidewalk, across a little bit of a parking lot, back up onto a sidewalk, and then over into the conference center. And that was tricky for her. She didn't use a cane. She didn't use a walker. And she was at the age at that point where she'd already fallen a couple of times, and nobody wanted her to fall again. And during those walks, she was the grandma, you know? There was very few times when I spent that kind of alone time with Dolores Cannon where there were really deep conversations. There's only one or two times really that the conversations went deep. Her deepest thoughts and deepest conversations from my perspective, and I got to spend some pretty good quality time with her, was when she was teaching, when she was being interviewed, when she was on stage. And then I think it's pretty apparent, when she had a keyboard in front of her. And I know that's when I feel the most connected myself. Receiving energy is when my hands are kind of on keyboard. I'm a little bit better now one-on-one sometimes with clients. This morning's Quantum Connect session had some channeling.
What happened in your Quantum Connect? Well, actually, would you tell our listeners about Quantum Connect?
I'd be happy to. So in general, Quantum Connect was born of doing this work of first past life regression, then QHHT, and then BQH. It comes straight out of there. So Quantum Connect, I thought, maybe what I could do is just focus on this aspect of this session work and have it be a standalone approach, really. So, well, what does that mean? Okay. So the whole idea of past life regression, trance kind of states, the idea is that you take the critical mind, the conscious mind, the brain part of you that analyzes everything that comes out of your mouth and says things like you're just making it up, that part of your mind. And the whole idea is to take that part of your mind and either have it be very relaxed or disengaged, or sometimes even go completely asleep. That's what somnambulism is. So the whole idea is to take that part of your mind and kind of set it to the side so that you can reach other aspects, greater aspects, different aspects, that kind of thing. So that's the whole idea of the regular, usually lengthy, excuse me, quantum healing sessions. But with Quantum Connect, what I did was I said, you know what? Why don't we take that portion of the session, meaning the longer sessions where we would just practice. It's like, let's just practice for a minute. Let's see how this works. And you have somebody imagine something or answer some questions back and forth. And what happens during that way of practice, and it's just kind of as an illustration, how this works, meaning don't get relaxed or anything right now. We're just going to show you. I'll ask questions and you'll answer them. So what happens then? Well, people are very awake. They're very playful and they're not putting a lot of pressure on themselves. And the prompting has always been just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Just don't think. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind. And sometimes right then and right there is when some of the biggest breakthroughs have been made. And this is nothing new. This has been going on for years and years. So the whole idea is you're still bypassing that part of the brain that throws a wrench into your connection, but you're not doing it with relaxation. You're doing it with speed. So I took that whole concept and kind of formed a modality around it, and I called it Quantum Connect. So there's no trance. There's typically no pressure. There's certainly no lengthy session time needed for relaxation and slip, because sometimes people, when they're in trance, they talk like this.
I know.
And it can go on for a really, really long time. And, we're kind of used to it because that's kind of part of the game. But when you get people to go fast, sometimes you can cover a lot of ground that way, and it's fun. And as an example, if I mention the session I had this morning, this wasn't intuitive anyway. This was, she's a BQH practitioner herself. She's a medium and an astrologer, an energy healer, one of us, one of the people like us who are doing things like that. And she was super, she was great. But because when you're doing intuitive reception, sometimes you you self-edit and you start questioning things that
Yeah.
come in your own way. But if you have somebody there helping you and it's just flowing, right? You're not stopping and analyzing as it goes, then sometimes the information that comes forth can be very, very helpful. And it absolutely was at this point. And the fact that she was a medium was the really interesting part, because my morning plugged into some of her answers, like in a really, really big way, both with one particularly very recently deceased person in my life. My father's caregiver died
Right.
completely unexpectedly, out of the blue, in an accident in May. She showed up, and my mother showed up right behind me with a whole group of others, and they were part of information that came to me during my daily life here at the farm, just minutes before my session with this gal. And when she did her Quantum Connect session, elements of my morning outside at the farm showed up in her session. It was great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's that energy connection still, just the same as it is with BQH. There, I'm seeing something all week, and then it'll happen to be
Yep.
in my person's session.
Yeah, you never know how that works. I had something happen to me the other day that was really interesting. And I think I was going to write about it. Oh, I'm going to write about all kinds of things, but I only have so many minutes in the day to get things done. But I'll tell that story. I had a client, and who's also a friend, but we did a session together, and she had actually told me about a dream. And in this dream, she'd been on the main highway here in town, and she had gotten rear-ended in this dream. And I asked her quite a bit of questions about it, other elements of it. And we've been puzzling over that for a little while. And then that was months and months ago. And about 3 days ago, something about her dream came up. And I thought, well, and then it came up again, and it came just meaning in my own head, in my own mind. And when it was like the third or fourth time, I texted her and I went, that dream you had, I don't know why it keeps popping up, but I've learned not to discount when spirit or something's coming up or my intuition's doing something. I don't know what it means, but it just keeps coming up. So I thought I'd let you know. She goes, what do you think it means? She's even asking me more. What do you think it means? I'm like, it may have not anything to do with anything. All I know is I don't ignore these things. That's all. That's all I can tell you is I don't ignore these things. And within about an hour after that, something happened to me, not her, not on the road, not physically. It was just a thing. I'm not even going to give you hints what it was. But let's just say it was something that came at me from out of the blue, from behind, gave me whiplash. I mean, emotional whiplash.
Right.
The whole thing was I was so stunned about how my day progressed after that. And it really even wasn't till like all the way the next day. I'm like, remembering her dream had nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
It was coming for me, right? But it was just this very, very specific thing of being rear-ended, which, when you're stopped and just going about your day, and if somebody rear ends you out of the blue, you're shocked and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And it was for me. It was just her dream was the perfect illustration of it. Dolores had the same thing. That's the interesting part. Sometimes the energy, I do believe, connected in another way. There's a lot of people who might not have really been aware of that. I think no doubt about it. Dolores was brilliant. She was special. She was a unique human being. I still can't believe how blessed I was to be able to be in her presence and aligned with her and working with her as much as I did. It almost seems like a dream anymore. It's starting to be, a number of years now since she's passed. But I think some people are under the impression like, oh, I wish I could have had a session with Dolores Cannon, because I would have been a chapter in her book, and I would have had one of these amazing sessions that she writes about. And the answer is nuh-uh at all, because I more than once was in her presence while she's doing a demonstration subject, and there's some people who are, and we called it resistant back then. There's a lot of different terms for this, and there's a lot of different ways to describe it, but basically it's the one word answer, or the people who just steadfastly will say one of two things, like I don't see anything, or I don't know. I mean, the thing is this happened to Dolores too. It wasn't just Dolores didn't make this person different than who they were. Sometimes the energy, I do believe, connected in another way. And I think that's another reason I was so blessed to have a session from her, because I'm still pondering that, because I think more happened on another level during that session than I can even still. Some of it's becoming more clear to me, but I still can't even really use words and talk about some of what was happening there, because it went unsaid. And
the first session that you had with her?
Well, I only ever had one, and it was abbreviated. I mean, if you think oh gosh, yeah, it was very short. And she only allowed me to ask 3 questions.
Really?
3. Yeah, 3 questions.
Hey. I know a little bit about that. I know that you were a cave woman, right?
Nope, I was a caveman.
Oh,
I was very much man.
that's right. And you were orange, so that was bad.
Yeah, I was the wrong color, because cavemen and cave women and cave babies and all the cave people were brown, and I was red. And so that was wrong. Yeah, it was one of the reasons they didn't like me.
Racism with the cave.
I tell you what, it goes all the way back.
God, that is
amazing.
That's weird when you think about it. I never thought about racism.
May I throw in a nature thing? I'll throw this in for you. I once had a red roan Appaloosa. So what is that? I don't know if you know about horses or not, but a red roan Appaloosa is a horse that is basically white, but has a lot of red speckles and splotches all the way through her. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I know Appaloosa.
She came with her name. I didn't name her. They actually named her Speckles, which was just like, oh God, it was just such a silly name. She was an amazing horse, though. I absolutely loved this horse, loved this horse, but she was put into a pasture where I boarded her at the time. And she was in a pasture with 3 or 4 other horses, and they were all dark brown with black manes and tails. It didn't kind of matter what boarding situation I was in or where we went. She was treated differently unless or until other horses that were maybe pintos or other Appaloosas or different color horses were around. And when she blended in, then it didn't happen so much. I absolutely believe, 100% believe, she was treated differently because she wasn't the right color within the herd of the other horses. I've been around a lot of horses, been around them for a lot of years. That's not always, I mean, I wouldn't point to that as being always the number one thing at all. Never really. But for this particular horse and her coloring and her situation, yeah, I think because she wasn't a dominant horse and she wasn't a fearful horse either. She was just like right in the middle of the pack thing. And there were horses that would go out of their way to just lean over and like try to take a bite out of her. And and sometimes in other groups or horse event things, and it's just like, I don't know, it just seemed like it was her colors.
Amazing. Were you going to say something, Travis? Or did you?
Yeah, we saw one horse that didn't want to be ridden. Is that the horse?
No. Oh, no. That was Will Brown. Okay. He was doing the channeling of the horses who are here currently. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
She's here for a completely different reason. It wasn't the one I thought I was getting the horse for, but it's the way life works.
Speaking of Allison and Will, we're going to talk to you about the BQH tandem. That was powerful.
Share with the people what happened to you when you were watching it, and when did it start? I mean, meaning when did you feel it start coming on?
Well, I had logged into the forum and there was the link and I wasn't really paying attention, so I just clicked on it And then I was doing something else. And then that energy came through the computer and just smacked me in the face. And I said, what is this? And then I started trying to watch, but then I got a phone call. And it's funny because most people I know
Yeah.
who I've talked to who have watched this have gotten an interruption. I don't know if that's because the energy is so strong that we need a little break, but I finished it the next day and I was just gobsmacked by it. Travis channeling angels is pretty big energy, but that was bigger. That was like source energy.
Yeah.
And 2 days after that, also, we manifested this thing that we had been trying to manifest for a year. That the angels have been talking to us about for a year. And it was just that easy.
Hmm.
It popped into our life.
That's wonderful.
You knew
I
if
love
you
that
knew
so
the
much.
backstory of what we've been through to get to that, you it was like, oh, thank God. But that's why I want to take you all and like hug you because I mean, I know we manifested it, but that changed so much for us. And I felt the energy for a good 2 weeks. You know how you talk about the energy
Oh
and
yeah.
the sleep with, oh boy, I was high off that for a good couple weeks there. I was just
Hmm.
like, everything's great. I was feeling pretty good. Huh?
Oh,
So,
Definitely a download of an energy.
wow.
And the interesting
Yeah.
part about it is it did seem strange. There were some people watching, and what I want to tell your viewers, there were some people in the room, and I won't name them, but they were watching and they found it fascinating. But there were some people in the room who could not make the same claim that you did. And that isn't to say something was wrong with them or that they're
No,
vibrating at a lower level or something like
no.
that, because nothing can be further from the truth. I just think that there are some unique connections that can be made, and there's something about that energy that came through was needed in your world, right? Absolutely. And some
Oh,
of those people, so,
wow.
and wasn't it you, Sarah, I think, who sent the link to
Oh,
somebody, and
oh
that person
yeah.
just like up and quit smoking after watching
Yes,
this. That is the
yes.
best. I was like, that's great.
uh-huh.
Here, you don't want to smoke
He's a,
anymore, just watch this video.
And her friend watched it and said that he went outside and had this vision happen where all these streams of energy, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but life was changed, like both of them. Like,
That's
man,
amazing. I love
went
it.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we know really what all is possible with this work. I really don't. And when there's people out there who, and I invite everybody to learn and talk about this for sure, but when I get around people who think they know and can explain, oh, I can explain that, and then they say, I'm like, part of me just kind of wants to laugh. It's like, if you're a human being, I don't even know how you can possibly really know what's going on. Now, on the other side of that coin, there's some people, maybe some fundamentalists, who are like, see, that's that power you need to stay away from, because that could be,
Oh yeah.
and
Right.
I, and the point is not a terrible one to make, but what I have found, as long as you have really good intentions and an
Mhm.
open heart
Yeah.
and are very honest about what you're doing and trying to do or looking for or discovering or whatever, I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I've only been doing this work for energy work for sure for 23 years, but the past life regression, this is my 16th year. Thousands of
Mhm.
sessions, thousands of students, thousands of classes out, and with Dolores and everything. And so
Yeah.
far, I'm not convinced that this is dangerous. Can it be mishandled? Absolutely. Can people make some poor decisions? Oh, absolutely. But as far as
mhm.
being kind of dangerous, or tapping into something that's not of the light, I don't see it yet.
Mm-mm.
I haven't seen it. Some people talk about it in that regard. Very few, of course, but mostly people who don't know, right? Mostly people
Yeah.
who are just
No, yeah.
looking from kind of, from afar, and placing their ideas on that. And at the same time, and I know I've said this before, but it's true. I'm thinking of a neighbor friend of mine because she lives just down the road. Somebody who owns it's actually a horse boarding facility, and I boarded my horses there right as we were moving here many years ago because I didn't have the place set up yet, and they needed to be there while the other people moved out and all that kind of stuff. And she was very fundamentalist, born again Christian woman.
Oh.
And as we got to know each other, at some point, it comes up, what is it that you do and things like that. And I don't even remember how I answered her, but I remember her looking at me like this. And she actually said something along the lines of, "You don't do that Reiki stuff, right? That's kind of from the devil, right? You don't do that Reiki stuff, right?" And,
Oh.
I was very kind, but I was very clear about my understanding, my perspective, my experience. But the more and more I do this work, I mean, this gal and I are great friends. She's coming here tomorrow to pick up some hay. I mean, we help each other as friends and neighbors. And I find that I have more to talk to her about than ever, in a way, because of all the years now with the Christ energy coming in to
Yeah.
this work and some of the sessions with Jesus and everything. I don't get up every Sunday and go to a church of any kind and have somebody preach at me, but the work I do, I think it's very
Yeah.
Christian focused, if you think
Absolutely.
about it. There's the good,
Absolutely, right?
positions and principles of Jesus come through in a lot of ways. We have a lot in common, and especially the last few years.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But it's true what you said about the energy. If you don't feel it, that doesn't mean anything. And that's another thing they've said lately. If you don't feel it, well, they said actually in our last channeling that people think that everyone should feel this the same exact way.
It's not
And
going to happen.
right. We want to put everything in a box, and
Yeah.
that's not how it works. They always
Yeah.
say humans want to put things in a box, don't they?
Yeah.
So
They even they even said that we shouldn't have any leaders. Like everyone should work together. There shouldn't be a leader. They even said that we shouldn't worship source because we're a part of source. Everything they say, everybody is pretty much coming from the same place from source. So you're part of source. So they don't want you to worship him like he's a god or something like that, which makes sense. They say everybody should just work together as one. Just be
yeah.
happy, work together as one. No one should be in charge. There
And
shouldn't be a
nobody's better.
leader. No one's better.
No one is better than anyone else. They said the levels thing, which is
Yeah.
interesting since BQH doesn't have levels. I just thought of that.
Yeah, we
There
watched
shouldn't
that
be levels.
levels thing fall
Mhm.
apart before our eyes.
Oh, did it?
So,
Well,
yeah,
wait, did
I
it?
mean, yeah, I understood the goal was laudable, shall we say, but the practice, what it ended up being was
Are you talking QHHT?
people. So we're talking about QHHT and the levels,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it, to put it very simply, Dolores used to teach her method, period. And then after a few years of doing that, people really needed questions because there wasn't a support forum yet, because I hadn't shown up yet, because that was the genesis of the support forum was after I took the class. And so she then, not long after that, she would give a 1 day, just 9 to 5, 1 day time where you could show up and ask her questions. It was just Q&A for a day. We did that for a little while. And then in some meetings, especially after the support forum got running, we started having meetings about why some practitioners were having just incredible sessions and other practitioners were still really struggling. So we started evaluating, and noticed that some people were doing some things that really weren't conducive, shall we say, to to successful sessions. And so then the level 2 classes changed to 3-day classes that focused on certain skill levels. So that ended up being the level 2. But even that was not, that didn't mean that everybody left with those skills, right? There was never a
Right.
test, there was never
Yeah.
evaluation or anything like that. So then Dolores decided, well, why don't you send in videos and let me watch you do a session, and then I can, evaluate you, because, in these classes, it's just send you off to practice with your friends and then come back, or your roommates or your colleagues, and then come back and talk to. And so, so she decided, well, we'll have to make that another offering, and we'll call that level 3. And I actually was the very first level 3 practitioner of Dolores, because I was
Yes.
helping her kind of gather all the stuff and try to figure out who and how to do all this. And these are in the days where just getting a video, there was no such thing as you send it. I mean, there weren't even, the first year we did that, we barely even had like CDs or DVDs to mail big files and things. It was, the
Wow.
people in Europe, it was very hard to even get a video to someplace else. The
Yeah.
computer, it was nothing like it was today. It was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So very few people managed to do that. They did, say you needed to do a lot more sessions than what you did, and you needed to do it like she wanted her to do it. And then the biggest problem I saw was the competition thing. The biggest thing I saw was that there would be clients who'd be saying things like, well, I've got this serious disease or something along those lines, so I can't have a level 1 practitioner, because in the client's mind, level 3 meant that's my best choice for healing, is that. And there were many, many people who couldn't get the level 3s for a number of reasons. Cost was just one of them. But also the number of sessions they required and all of that. And so suddenly people were really not happy with the level 3 people. And then the level 2s were suddenly like, nobody's calling me anymore for sessions, because the whole thing the competition on both ends got silly, I think. And stranger yet was this thing that I saw, which was that many of the level 3s had to arrange and do their sessions in a way to remain level 3, shall we say. So level 1s and 2s actually were more, in my view, only this is my opinion, level 1s and 2s were more free to have intuitive, open-ended, greater possibilities happening than even the level 3 people. So the whole thing just kind of fell apart as far as I could tell. In the back of my mind would have been something like, well, if it were me, I'd just scrap the whole thing. But of course it wasn't me until later, when I had my own offering, and I'm like, I'm never doing it.
I'm so
That's never
glad you didn't. It's just so
Yeah.
much easier and nicer.
The connection should be like this anyway, right? Doesn't matter the number.
Absolutely.
And it matters how, and believe you me, there are some people, and not just in this work, but in other areas of work, where they're tired or they're obligated, or they'd much rather be doing something else, but they're continuing on because of whatever, bills or obligations or whatever. And if they're just like going through the motions, and their heart and their passion isn't there anymore, you are much better off with somebody who's excited and brings a fresh energy than somebody who's, I don't know, in a box or obligated or just tired, right?
I'll say this real quick, because I know we don't have any time left, but yes, I have swapped with a couple of people who had been doing healing for years and years and years, and they were really just used to doing it the way they did it. It was almost like they didn't really even need me there. Like, okay, just guide me and then I'll take over. Yes. I can see why now Candace says that, newer people can have great sessions because they don't have any back stuff. There's not
No baggage.
stuff.
and a
Right.
real
Right.
passion. They're
And an
still very
excitement.
excited.
Yeah.
That's that kid energy again,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the energy that you want from a practitioner, is somebody who is still thrilled to do
Mhm.
the work, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Those are the
Yes.
best ones to have.
Yeah.
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 We really
Well,
like having you on here today, though.
yes. Thank you so much,
Well,
Candace,
I
for
thank
being
you
on
so
our
much
show.
too. It's
We
been fun to
appreciate you.
finally have this
Yeah.
kind of interaction
Yeah.
face to face and get to feel your energy in this way.
Oh
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, we love we've been watching you for a while, actually. We just
Mhm.
love the way you do things, you know. You just
Your
do it
ener
right.
well,
yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Your energy really does come across to people. I've heard that so many times from so many
Well,
different
thank you.
people.
That means the world to me. And I mean, you're a practitioner too. And Travis, you being a channel, two of my favorite things ever have been tandem sessions with channel. Maybe we ought to try that someday.
Yeah, we would
Oh,
love
I would
to.
love that.
Yeah, we'd love to do
Look
that.
at that. That's the biggest rise we got out of you today. I love it.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
love that.
we'll figure that out at some point. I got to get my care
Yeah,
situation up there a
yeah,
little more set up.
yeah.
But maybe we can do that someday.
Love to. Now
Okay,
that the thing happened, we will be able to do that.
super.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We don't want to take up any of your more of your time. I know you've got to go, but we
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
appreciate
Yeah,
you.
got
Love you.
got things to
And
do, people to see, sessions
yeah,
to hold,
gotta get up at
all that
4
stuff.
a.m. and do
Yeah,
whatever you do at 4 a.m.
yeah.
I wouldn't know because at 4 a.m. I'm usually past falling
Well,
asleep.
trying to be quiet and let the two men in the house, my dad and my husband, let them keep sleeping while I get some stuff done.
Yeah.
is typically I'm usually like, just hurry up, son. I'm usually waiting on the sun, like just hurry up and get the sun up so that I can get outside and finish
Oh,
up.
the sunshine. How funny. How funny.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
love the mornings. I'm a morning person for
I
sure.
would love them if I were up for them. But
I'm not very good at parties because I'm like, I gotta go. It's late.
yeah. Well,
I'm no good
as we
at
get
that.
older,
Yeah.
yeah, as we get older, it's getting more and more that way. We're gotta go to bed now. We're tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again for being on. We love you so much.
You are so
Appreciate
welcome.
you.
I appreciate all of your support and your light in the
Oh,
world. It means
Yes.
a lot.
thank you so much. All right.
You're
Well,
so
have a
welcome.
good day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you later.
Bye. Bye, Candace.
We hope you enjoyed this wonderful session with Candace. Always feel her positive energy and her passion for what she does, that you were able to notice and feel that too. I know I had a great time, loved having her on, and I know Travis did too. Thank you for being here, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Quantum Healing with the Angels. This podcast is sponsored by Sarah Webb Beyond Quantum Healing. Contact Sarah today for your free consultation and mention this ad for 10% off your Quantum Healing or Quantum Connect session.